Hello, Marlene. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you.
So, my name is Veronica Dominguez. Today, you were referred to our office, to the clinic, and we'd like to just go over briefly. First of all, here, let me just cover. You were referred to our clinic. Why?
I think I'm starting to show signs of depression.
Do you know what could be triggering that?
I think my recent separation, so having to deal with that and my children.
And so you find that it's important. Your family is very important. So you're trying to seek help.
Yes.
And so in that sense, you're trying to get some help. And have you started any kind of counseling so far?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So basically, part of this, sometimes our depression is triggered by stressors that we're dealing with. Maybe, how many children do you have?
2.
You have 2 children. That could be challenging.
Yes, it is.
And so once those triggers set in, they could probably enhance the fact that, hey, I now need to share more responsibilities with 2 children, right? Let alone 1. And so that could be part of the triggers, right? That you're feeling stress, and then now depressed. One of the things that we like to do, a questionnaire that we like to cover with our patients is, for example, we don't know that perhaps depression could be brought about of other things, from other things. Do you mind if we do a questionnaire briefly regarding alcohol?
No, that's fine.
That's fine. It'll be a brief screening, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
Thank you for that, because this will help us with our services, enhance our services as well. To start off with, do you smoke or use tobacco?
No.
When was the last time you had 4 drinks in one day? 4 drinks or more in one day?
In one day, probably at a birthday party. Yeah, this past weekend.
This past weekend. And how many times in the past year have you used an illegal drug or prescription medication for non-medical reasons?
I don't use any drugs.
Okay. And so let's talk about the quantity and the of alcohol use. How often do you use that? You mentioned that in a birthday party, 4 drinks. So basically, do you feel that you drink at least more weekly or monthly?
I would say usually 2 to 3 glasses of wine a week.
A week? So that would be every week?
Yeah.
You know, studies have shown that alcohol for a woman, in this case being more drinks than 7 in a week, is considered to be a little bit to be too much. Basically, the steady count would be at least 7 drinks a week.
Okay.
Or at least 3 in one setting. You feel you do more than that?
No, I would say it's about 3 a week.
3 a week.
Yeah.
But it's every week, so that's 4. That's in a month. It'd be 4 weeks, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what we can do is we can move on to do a little questionnaire. It's called the audit. Just try to enhance a little bit more of where you stand. Do you mind if we do that audit?
That's fine.
Okay, great. So it's going to be a series of questions. It won't take too long. How often do you drink alcohol?
2 to 3 times a week.
Okay. How many drinks containing alcohol do you have on a typical day when you are drinking?
About 3.
Okay. How often have you had 6 or more drinks in one occasion?
A couple times a year.
A couple times. Would you say that's less than monthly?
Yes.
Just a couple times a year?
Yeah.
Okay. How often during the last year have you found that you were not able to stop drinking once you started?
Never.
Never. Have you ever had, do you work, Marley?
Yes.
Have you ever had an instance where it affected your work?
No.
You never had to call in sick or anything like that?
No.
Okay. How often during the last year have you failed to do what was normally expected to you because of drinking?
Maybe less than monthly.
Do you recall in what ways? Forgotten appointments, maybe, or it just hasn't had a big impact where it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think there's really been that much of an impact.
How often during the last year you needed a first drink in the morning to get yourself going after a heavy drinking session?
Never in the morning.
Never in the morning. So have you ever had to go to a party, you really had a fun time, and then you had a hangover or something to pick up in the next morning?
No. I mean, hangover, yes, but I've never wanted to drink in the morning.
So you feel you have it under control?
Yes.
Not enough to where it affects you the following morning?
Yeah.
How often during the last year have you had a feeling of guilt or remorse after drinking?
I would say once in a while, maybe less than monthly, maybe like once every 2 to 3 months.
And do you remember like why it would give you a guilty feeling?
Just because I have kids, so I feel like after I realized the amount that I was drinking at the time, I just felt guilty for doing that instead of being a little bit more present.
So it shows that your family is priority in your life.
Yes.
Your children. Quality time with them is your priority.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes of you, really, as a person. Thank you for sharing that. How often during the last year have you had a feeling of guilt or remorse? You mentioned that less than a monthly. Let me make a notation of that. How often during the last year have you been unable to remember what happened the night before because you had been drinking?
Never.
Never. Okay. Have you or someone else been injured as a result of your drinking?
No, not at all.
Ever had run-ins with the law or anything like
No.
accidents having to do with DWIs?
No.
Has a friend or relative or a doctor or another health worker been concerned about your drinking or suggested you cut down?
Yes, my friends have told me once in a while that I do drink too much sometimes.
And your friends have expressed this because, do you think because they care, or is it because you don't like it's becoming too expensive and you're not doing your part, or what could be?
No, I think it's genuinely because they care, because they do see how much I care for my children, and so, alcohol does get to become expensive, so spending more on alcohol means that I'm spending less on what I actually need to be doing with my kids.
That's important too.
Yeah.
Based on the calculation that we did, the results show to be having a score of 9. And what that does is put you in a category use of risky use. Okay, so a 9 is still a very workable amount where you can have a good control of it if you look for some help.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it looks like the several reasons that you mentioned were very important to you, what your friends think about you,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that they're see sometimes, hey, a little bit overboard on drinking.
Yeah.
Number 2, which is even more important, would be their children, maybe quality time, maybe financial, right? Money's being spent. So thank you for providing that information. May we continue with just briefly a few more questions?
Sure.
So, what is it that you like about drinking, Marley?
I feel like it just takes my mind off of whatever problems are going on at the time. It gives me that, I guess, that feeling that of just staying calm in a way. I think that alcohol affects people in different ways. For me, it calms me down more than anything.
What is it that you dislike about it?
The dizziness, once I don't know how to manage it. But other than that, I don't feel, other than like the expense that it costs, there's really nothing that I dislike about. Sometimes the feeling can get a little overwhelming depending how much I do drink, but for the most part, everything is kind of steady.
Do you know that drinking or alcohol in you know, in drinking of moderation, even in a situation where we have a score of 9, may be causing in the long term, can cause more health problems. And one thing, it causes depression, because if we're trying to feel, okay, it lets me feel great, but then it comes back. The feeling comes back, I still feel depressed. What could it be? It causes high blood pressure. We've been seeing studies that showing that it's raising high blood pressure. Also gastroenteritis problems, you know, inflammatory problems, things of that nature. But I like the fact that you're indicating, hey, there is an area where I like, you know, I have control over it, as you mentioned. If we provide you with a ruler, a readiness, you know, for example, a scale, and 0 is at, I'm not going to make a change at all, and 5 is somewhat of a change, and 10 is, I'm ready to make a change. You know what? I'm going to take control of my drinking. Where would you fall in? What number would you say you fall in?
I think I would be closer to an 8. Not so much I'm ready to completely stop drinking, but also to the point where I want to be able to manage it to where it's not affecting my expenses as much.
And you would not be at a lower number because?
I don't want to completely cut it out, but I do know that it does sometimes become an issue, and I know that it can still affect my feelings of depression. I feel like alcohol, I use it as a temporary fix and not so much a long-term thing. So that's why I feel like right now I'm at an 8. I do want to eventually get to a solid 10, to where I am completely ready to just move on from it and cope in different ways with whatever I have going on.
So eventually you have an internal motivation at some point that you would seek other ways to help you get there.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Marnie. And so basically we've talked about ways that you can help yourself, such as perhaps would you be talking to your friends, saying eventually when you are ready to make a move?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they're very understanding when sometimes if I don't want to go and, you know, do something, or if we're having a gathering at someone's house. So I know they're trying to help me by not doing those types of activities. So I think, you know, if I disclose that I am ready to just completely move away from alcohol, that they would be very supportive.
Great. So you would have a strong support factor there. And there's no doubt that you're doing this also as a more personal, which would be your children.
Correct.
So we are, and you would probably start, at one point, would you have an idea as to when?
I guess I would say I'd want to try to see what I can do to manage the feelings of depression, and by integrating that I think that would hopefully steer away from the alcohol consumption.
Great. So trying to work on your depression and see what is helping you trigger that, and then you would make a change, helping you towards alcohol. That's great. So that shows that you do have some type of plan as an outlook and trying to better yourself. Well, Marley, we've covered quite a bit of area. Do you have any questions for me?
No questions at the moment.
If I can help you in some way, you'll know that I am here, and let us know so that we can get you on a program that could help you, provide you with more resources that will expand your knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great day.